We're calling it better or worse. And you and Femi Abebefe did the exercise over the weekend. So you're talking about the teams that missed the playoffs last year that are favored this season. And it's a storyline that will get repeated a bunch as we get towards training camps, how there is so much turnover. You usually see 4 or 5 teams every single season that made the playoffs miss the next year. So we're going to look today at the teams who made the playoffs last year and who are underdogs to get back this year, favored to miss. And I have to think, Michael, a big talking point as we get towards training camp on the LA Chargers is going to be, wow, how could you ever come back from the blown lead in Jacksonville in the wild card game? And that's going to be that tired trope thrown out there. Oh, they're definitely going to have that as a hangover coming into this year. 10-17 from last year. But what do you realistically expect to see out of the Chargers with all the issues they had defensively? How much can we expect them to get better on that side of the ball as a team right now, even money to make the playoffs, minus 120 to miss?
Well, I mean, I think that's the fundamental question, right? I mean, they won 10 games last year, right? And their defense wasn't very good. I think they struggled. They were the worst team yards per attempt in rushing defense. They had a hard time stopping teams from running the football. Did they do, they so naturally, when you can't stop the run, what would be the first thing you do if you can't stop the run? Sign a receiver, draft a receiver. It makes perfect sense to me. Why wouldn't we do that?
Yep.
Yeah, let's get a receiver. That's what we need, which I'm not saying they don't need a receiver because last year with DeAndre Carter had to come in and play, with Keenan Allen's injury and Mike Williams, it kind of hurt them. But to me, they can't stop the run. And here's the other fact. They can't run the ball. They averaged 30 yards, and so they brought in my man Joystick, Kellen Moore, doesn't call runs. I mean, they were 28th in rushing attempts last year, right? So Joe Lombardi didn't call runs. They were 30th in yards. They didn't gain yards, right? And so now they're 30th, in 30th yards per attempt. So they really didn't do anything. So to me, they never get control of the game because they can't stop the run, nor can they run the ball. I know this. Running the ball means getting field goals, right? I get that. I understand that. But there's a way to pace a game by running the ball. I'm not saying go out there and establish the run. I want to establish the lead, but I also want to be able to control the game.
Chargers were not able to do that when they had the ability to run out the clock in the AFC wildcard game, and that'll be, again, the big talking point coming up. Eric Kendricks was the big addition, at least on the defensive side from Minnesota.
Huge addition.
You would think that will help out in
the run. Of course,
in a big way.
Put a receiver in at will linebacker, that'll help too.
Right.
Look, I think the draft is a reflection of understanding team building, and I think and who really can help you. Now, in fairness to them, maybe there wasn't a defensive lineman or somebody to help in their front seven. But to me, if they don't stop the run, that's always about they can't get control of the game.
And you'll see now where will the Eric Kendricks addition factor in, because he now leaves Minnesota, who is the next team on our list. And we mentioned them in the Step Into My Office segment from earlier today with Kirk Cousins now into his final year, that 3-year deal. Plus 110 to make the playoffs, minus 130. I just pulled up my end-of-season power ratings, Michael, and of the 12 teams in wildcard weekend last year, I had the Vikings power rated 11th, and you're going to hear the refrain a lot of, you win, 8-9 one-score games, you're destined to take a huge step back. Will that actually come to fruition this season now, as the odds certainly believe it will, and they will regress to a degree where they're outside the playoff picture?
Well, I mean, look, the Ed Donatel, they got rid of Ed Donatel, so that really, that affected them. Did they, when going into the draft, you felt like they needed to get some corner help, right? They needed to get corner help. They needed to get defensive line help. Can they do that? I think those are the things. But the problem is they're really stuck on the fact that they don't have cap room. Now, they signed Dean Lowry to help in the defensive line. They've signed Marcus Davenport that try to help them in the defensive line. But can they get there? They signed Byron Murphy to help at corner. So, they understand their needs, but are they going to be good enough? Can those guys come in and deliver for them? I think that remains to be seen, and they were in so many close games that they were fortunate enough to win them, and they found a way to win them. So, for me, I don't know if you can duplicate that magic again. And if they get rid of Cook, I think Matheson's a really good player, but Cook's a special guy too. And Jefferson is an elite player at the receiving corps. I thought Thielen was towards the end of his career, and he wasn't the same guy. So I think when you break down this team, there's a lot of question marks, and a lot of it still stems from, are they good enough up front? Because with Cousins, if you don't protect him well enough, that's a problem.
it was a team that did grade out. 22nd in the run block win rate, 23rd in pass block. It was toward the bottom 10 of the league in that regard for a good amount of the year. And I think a lot of people will wonder, Brian Flores, big name coming in as a defensive coordinator. The struggles of the defense under Ed Donatel, well documented. Can that be enough, Michael, to counteract that perceived regression that we're all talking about here with Minnesota?
Yeah, I think what will happen with Minnesota is Flores will scale down what they want to do. I think they'll get better at one or two things, and they're going to rely on the offense to play from in front, which they can do. I mean, they can move the football effectively, but, they're going to have to prove that they can do that, right? And Cousins has got to be able to play consistently within the framework of what they do and not always kind of, if he gets hit early in the game, oh, no, we're in trouble. So I think they'll be better defensively because they won't be all over the place in terms of trying to plug holes.
As far as the team the Vikings lost to in last year's playoff game, it's another team that made the postseason, made it to the divisional round before being waxed by Philadelphia, and is a dog to get back there to the postseason this time around, Michael. New York Giants. It's a classic case, right, of the numbers community. You look at all the like even just the basic stats, right? I mean, yards per play, bottom 10 offense and defense, but it didn't matter. Brian Daboll was able to scheme situations for them to find success, win 9 games, make the postseason. Here they are, plus 145 to make the playoffs now coming in here to 2023.
Yeah, I mean, and look, let's be honest here. I mean, can they duplicate what they did last year? I thought that Brian deserves a ton of credit for what he was able to do in terms of managing the game. But can he do it? Look, with the second half of the season, let's be clear. They come back, they play Houston. Houston's never punts in the second half. They turn it over. They lose to Detroit. They get beat by Dallas. They tie Washington in overtime. Philly blows them out, right? Then they beat Washington. They had that kind of really good start of the season. They beat a Bears team. They beat the Packers. Great win for them against Baltimore and a win against Jacksonville that kind of seemed improbable, but they got it done. But then at the end of the year, I mean, their 2 wins at the end of the season are against the Washington Commanders and against the Indianapolis Colts. And then they beat Minnesota in a playoff game. So, I think this team has got a chance they're good. They got a long way to go. I mean, they have a long way to go. I think when you break them down, they were very effective in game situations. They were one of the best red zone teams offensively, 7th in the league. They're one of the best red zone defensive teams, 5th in the league. They were the 5th best third down team in the league. Can they stop the run? No, but they get off the field on third down, which is critical. So for me, and then they haven't come close to beating Dallas or Philly, and that's who they have to beat to get in.
Right. Well, and we just had the discussion on the Chargers, and when you can't stop the run, how that puts you behind the 8 ball. Giants really couldn't either. Finished the year 30th rush DVOA defense. We're last in the league the final 6 weeks of the season. How much do you believe that the signing of Bobby Okereke coming over from Indianapolis, where he was part of that top 12 run defense group, will really impact the Giants this year?
Well, I think it'll help, certainly, because they had no linebackers. I mean, they were playing Jalen Smith in there at linebacker, and poor guy's playing on one leg. So, that's got to help them a little bit. But I think, to me, the bigger question is, can Daniel Jones make a play down the field? See, here's the thing. They manage Daniel Jones really effectively. But once they start to move him outside of his comfort zone, he averaged 6.9 yards per attempt. They didn't throw the ball down the field. So Jalen Hyatt they draft will give him an outside vertical presence. Can Jones get the ball to him? Darren Waller, can he stay healthy? I think that's the question. If they play outside of their comfort zone, which was very, very conservative, run the ball, play action. They were number 1 in the league in not throwing interceptions. They were 25th in the league in yard and passing attempts. So they didn't want to throw the ball much. They wanted to kind of manage the game, slow the game down. They're 24th in yards. I'm not making these numbers up. They protected the ball. They were 2nd in the league in turnovers. If that shifts just a little bit, they're going to win 7 games, not 9.
And also the health of Saquon Barkley, as we talked about earlier. What will his contract situation look like when we get toward the training camp set part of the season? And can he stay healthy after finally only missing 1 game? It was the healthiest season he'd been since a rookie. A lot of questions there for the Giants heading into 2023.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.